Still morning, so good morning. C'est un plaisir d'être ici avec tout le monde. When we gather in Canada, we often, at something like this, we often start with a land acknowledgement. Can you hear two of me? Good sound? I'm from Vancouver. In Vancouver, if we were gathering there, we would acknowledge the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. We do that as just an act of reconciliation. And so when I travel, I like to take that act on the road with me. And so very respectfully, if I may, I would like to acknowledge that Nashville is the traditional homeland of the Shawnee, Cherokee, Chickasaw, and Muskogee peoples. Their deep connections to this region endure to this day, and I'm grateful for those who have stewarded this place throughout generations. We do a lot of Indigenous experiences in Canada, and you're wondering, will she get to AI? Yes, I will. But I always get a little bit emotional when I think about the importance of that. So thank you for listening to that acknowledgement, and also thank you for the incredibly kind welcome from everybody in the room here. You know, we kind of fill ourselves up a little bit in Canada, pride ourselves in being warm and welcoming. And I've had so many generous invitations and kind introductions. And I just want to say I feel at home. So thank you very much. And also for Media Post, the way that you program this is very smart. Very good content. The speakers yesterday, I learned a lot, which is not always the case. But you leave room for us to meet each other and have those other conversations. And I got to sit beside Andrew last night and find my podcast soulmate. I think my list is a tiny bit better than his, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I hope this is helpful. I must say, if there's anything you take away from what I talk about in the next 15 minutes, but my timer's not rolling, so keep me honest on the time that I have. There it goes. If you're to be, I'm the chief marketing officer, and if I could say one thing that has gotten us ahead and more competitive, it's the fact that we hired a chief data and analytics officer. So I got a partner. Research used to report into me, and I wasn't asking good enough questions because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I have to say, 2 years ago when we hired our chief data and analytics officer, my mouth is a little dry. We had a lot of fun last night on Broadway. Sorry about that. I even learned a few lyrics of cowboy songs, which I didn't know any. So our chief data and analytics officer came from the healthcare industry. So she's thrilled to be in tourism, but she built, and this is what was really important, and understood how to build something from the ground up, and not to patch and not to band-aid and not to extend or to just build you a dashboard and say, there's your dashboard. So that's one. And the other thing is what I learned in working with somebody, I don't know if some of you might know him, Connor Grennan. He's a NYU professor. He has a newsletter and I think a channel. It's called AI Mindset. And we spent a day working with him in New York. And my biggest takeaway from that was, you know, I kept thinking he was going to show me how to do what we needed to do and how to prompt better. But really what I learned was it needed a cultural shift in our organization, and it was on the leaders to do that. And so when he talks about an AI mindset, I think it's reflected in what you'll see here that we've built in the last couple of years. So before I run the obligatory little marketing video, I think what I'd like to just let you know is I don't jump out of bed going, what are we going to do with AI today? I jump out of bed because our mission is to impact the wealth and well-being for all of Canada, as well as enrich the lives of our guests. And if we do our job, we get people to fall in love with Canada, or at least to give it a try. So let's see.
Sometimes you gotta push yourself to the limits. Even if your limit is snowplowing at like 3 miles per hour.
Kilometers. This is Canada.
Sorry. Sometimes you gotta run with the big dogs. Or just kind of get dragged behind them. And yeah, you might fall. Things might get hot. Or a bit chilly. But it's fine. You can just go inside.
Le poison, s'il vous plaît.
Le poisson?
Because when you try something new, even a failure feels like a victory. Try something new. Try Canada.
Thank you. So how do you get to something like that? You need a traveler insight. Our insight was that when people go on holidays, they want to try something new. And so we just stuck the insight right into the language. But how do you get the insights and how do you get there is a little bit longer story. So for us, part of the reason that when we believe travel is a force for good, it's because it is an economic engine. In Canada, it's 1 in 10 jobs. It drives GDP. It drives fair living wages in small communities and lets the youth remain there and not have to leave. It helps for cultural retention. And so doing our job well is really critical to a thriving economy in all parts of the country throughout the year. And for us, during COVID, we realized something that I guess we knew, but it really hit us pretty hard. Our data was not real time enough to help our industry. We have over 5,000 small businesses in our country and they were going out of business and we didn't have enough real-time data to help them. And then when we did, it was a sea of data that was too hard to access and use. So we started from scratch and we built what we call today the Data Collective. And very ironically, 3 days ago, my Chief Data and Analytics Officer was here in Nashville picking up awards for this Data Collective. And this is her presentation that I borrowed. So, I'm like, you put the marketing video in there? That's great. All right, I don't have to do anything. I changed the name at the front. But if Megan were here, she would tell you a lot more of the technical setup. For me, it's more about the solutions that it did and how it ties to the job that we do in Canada. And for us, we had to understand how to put together a centralized brain and something that would help with the supply and demand side of our data resources in terms of giving people knowing where growth was coming from, but could we meet that supply? Is there headroom? What's potential down the road? If you go to our website today, you'll see a lot of the data and analytics that I'm talking about. There are some layers that are hidden because it's proprietary to the partners who pay and invest in the platform itself. Here's the AI in part. It has a lot of data and a lot of sources. I'll talk about the 5,000 regions in a second. But if you have that much data and humans are managing it, it'll break. Data gets dirty, and humans don't figure out those glitches in fast enough time. So we had a lot of partners who worked with us, including Google and Gemini. We did put it on our own. We manage this platform ourselves, but have a lot of partners who help us with the management and the keeping it running. 5,000 regions in the country. So part of our job is to attract investment so that we can have more supply. And so in these communities, what you will see is the resources and infrastructure that's built, and it may give confidence to an investor to know that they can, in fact, build what they want to build in Canada. We built it with our partners across the country, asking them what do they need to know, how soon do they need to know it, And how can we access their data so that it's constantly getting smarter? And one of the things that we really understood is we had to go from, in some cases, we had 18-month lags to our data for arrivals and spend, to having it not just real time, but predictive models that would help us understand what we think will be the spend within 6 months, as well as modeling out 5 years, the potential headroom for the markets that we're in. So that's why you get this little spider graph of what's going on there. So if you think about it, what you'll see when you come to the website is really the tip of the iceberg, and underneath are all the different layers. Megan is very good at also building decks. Look at that. Are all these different layers that had to come together in order to make sure that what we put forward is useful. And then I'll get to accessible in a second. But it really was built with people, for people, and a bit of tech. So how did we start to pull in generative AI? Well, one of the things that I really hate is sitting down with an analyst who's just done your segmentation work. And I'm like, oh, but I forgot to also ask, you know, what do they read? Well, I'll be back in a week when I look through the data. And I'm like, God, I wish I could just talk to the data. That was my dream that I put forward to Megan. And she said, well, we could do that. We could do that. So she pulled together the data and the research that we had, and using generative AI, created, well, in this case, 2 avatars, but the ability for us to actually talk to the data. These 2 avatars were launched at CES, might be a show some of you are familiar with. It's in Las Vegas in January each year. And so to get attention at CES, you have to do something flashy. So we had some avatars who represent our key segments. And the woman even had a British accent because she was a segment from the UK. So they were talking, and that was kind of glitzy. But the real power of this program is the traveler twin and the ability to chat and talk to the data, which is what's going on right there on the right-hand side of the screen. So you can say, well, what would be the driver from the US if they're a refined globetrotter? Or what would, in the winter, convince an outdoor explorer to come up and ski? So, you keep, as with anything, you have to keep having a chat. But because it's trained on reams and reams of the segmentation data that we've done in 9 different markets, I no longer have to wait for the really one smart guy to either come back from holiday or from his corner in the office after reading through all the reams and bringing me the insights. I can just find them on my own. The other thing we started to do is using facial recognition software. That spot I showed you, we mapped it with real people watching it, just to see where people are engaged. And it wasn't to say that we were going to change the spot, but we could amend it. We could alter it and go, you know, the music isn't working. Let's maybe tone this down or bring this up, and we could make some small edits. So we didn't at first we did freak out the creative agency because they thought we were going to use it to judge them, but we really just wanted to learn about how the response might be from various viewers, and if just a bit of sound editing could in fact change the way that they engage. So I talk about built for our industry and by our industry, and I'll wrap up with just a couple of examples of how much use we are seeing. We just didn't pick up a couple awards last week, but we've been recognized from the World Tour and Travel Council as a global leader. Skift has identified what we're doing as a leader in the world as well in terms of helping our businesses. What really gets me jumping, though, is not the awards, but the fact that a small operator whom I know in Newfoundland has a fishing charter, and he went in took the segment that he was trying to attract. He did two things. He learned enough about his segment that he altered headline in his ads, and then he added a little small gift in advance, mailed them something in advance. He has small groups who come. His NPS score shot through the roof from this little small gift coming through and helping people imagine what they were going to do and start telling their friends even before they left that they're going. And he had much better results in marketing. For us, we've increased the efficiency of our targeting by 40%. And we did that in comparative tests. So we don't have to use other third-party data to do some lookalikes. We're actually working with our agency to have the efficiencies within our system. And then I'll just quickly say, and I can tell the rest of the story when the cameras aren't on, but there was a small DMO who they were fired because they put out some ads that weren't appropriate. And the new CEO had to convince the board to give them some money, and she got a budget. And so she got some budget. She went in and in an afternoon, used our data to show them that just with that small amount of budget, how much impact she was having in her city. And she got more budget. So when I hear stories like that, I know we're heading in the right direction. But really the lessons were starting with the problems we were needing to solve, which was we weren't having data soon enough and it wasn't easy to use. And I think you heard some lovely, I think it was Sarah who said, simple, generous. Like for us, we had those kind of North Stars of useful and usable. And we built it with people. So I think I was supposed to say something about data layers, but I would let Megan answer those questions. And I'll just say though that it's never felt better to be a marketer, to know that you actually can use the technology as a force for good and impact for us, the wealth and well-being for the country. So thank you very much. Do I slide off? Oh.
Yeah. What questions do we have?
Sarah Penicelli from Wyndham. Thank you. That was a great presentation. My question is, can you give us a sense of the time it took you to build this amazing product?
18 months. And the digital twin was prototyped in 6 weeks. And we had a product at CES in 6 months. I know it's kind of weird, inside government, bold initiatives, but they do happen, I'm proud to say. Yeah.
Hi, Melissa from ad.com. It's a statement and a question. One, we love your logo. That is amazing. How long have you had that, and have you seen any lift around having something so special and unique?
So we've been using that logo since 2000. So I was hired as CMO right at like February 2000. So nobody has taken the numbers down faster than I did in tourism at Destination Canada. But we had that logo. So it's a design agency in Montreal, and Montreal has such juicy designers. They really get under it, and they design this in such a way with a lot of feedback. But the really neat thing is the feedback wasn't just us. It didn't used to have the maple leaf on it, and in 2019 I took it to some of my in-market people in Japan, and they've been selling Canada for 20 years, and they're always very polite, always as a culture, but also in our dealings. And I'd never heard somebody be so direct and say, there is no maple leaf. Canada is a maple leaf. I marched right back to Montreal and said, come on, it's on the Canadien, it's on your jerseys, right? You have to have a maple leaf. So they put a maple leaf in there. So a bit of a partnership, but yeah, the design came out, and we're very grateful for a lot of this. And in fact, I was seen in Palm Springs along the streets. A lot of Canadians go to Palm Springs every year, and this year they paused their advertising in Canada, instead put up the hearts all along the road, thanking Canadians for coming and welcoming them back. So it's
Thank-
nice.
thank you.
Yeah.
I have a quick question, Gloria. I'm curious, as you have this conversation with the AI agent as
Yeah.
part of the collective, any strange or just very surprising insights that you've encountered as you've had this dialogue?
Strange. So it's never like said post nude pictures and like
Well, that's good.
uh, the interesting part to me is that it behaves just like ChatGPT in that it just keeps getting smarter about you. And in our case, the more we're engaging with it, we're training it to a lot more nuances. And so we had, because at the beginning I'm like, tell me something I don't know. Oh, influencers are influential. Whatever. It kind of wasn't there. But it is getting smarter, and it's reminding me of things like, yeah, but don't forget, in Australia, the culture seekers are really loyal. They come back 3 times. It's easy to forget stuff like that when you have 9 different markets, whereas a culture seeker from like France or Germany will come once. So it's like, oh yeah. And I don't know if any of the humans in the data and analytics team would remember that. They probably would. They're so smart. But I'm not with them all the time. And so when we're making decisions in markets and building our plans, that's what's been really interesting, is it is a good partnership. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Gloria.
Thank you.